Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2024 Summit Candidates Forum, sponsored by Hometown Television, also known as HTTV. My name is John Cerruto, and I will be tonight's moderator. In researching local elections, I came to realize that very few debates happen anymore on the local level for a number of reasons. But through the cooperative efforts of the party's chairs, Republican Nick Curiel and Democrat Greg Vartan, Summit continues to offer this informative venue to its candidates and its citizens. Our forum is a debate, and a debate is basically a formal discussion in a public setting where opposing arguments are put forth. To successfully accomplish this, we must set and follow procedural rules. So here are the rules. Tonight's issues and positions are to remain local, not personally attacking towards any individuals or institutions. The candidates are to answer questions in an informative and constructive manner. The questions were chosen through topics emailed to HTTV and/or by the HTTV staff. Numerous questions emailed were about the same topics, but in different forms. So when possible, we simplified and generalized those topics. The candidates will get 90 seconds to respond to the questions. They'll be offered a 30-second rebuttal if they so choose. The only exception, candidates will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for closing remarks. To get as many questions in as possible, a rapid-fire question requiring just a short and direct answer will be asked to the candidates periodically. They will get 45 seconds to answer it, no rebuttal time. The timekeeper, Reed Chrisman from Hometown TV, will regulate the clock. The moderator might permit a statement to finish, but will intervene if, in the moderator's opinion, that statement could or should have been concluded. The order of questioning will be rotating throughout the forum, so each of the candidates will have an opportunity to respond in a fair and equitable order. There are to be no questions or comments coming from the audience, and please, no applause unless instructed by me. No other form of noise or interruption should take place. The only recording or video of this debate is allowed by HTTV. HTTV will televise the debate unedited and in its entirety numerous times over the next 6 weeks. We enjoy repeating programming, as most of you know by now. Cell phones and any other electronic devices are not permitted. Candidates will not have any notes or prepared comments except for their opening and closing statements. A quick thank you to Lieutenant Daly on very short notice from the Summit Police Department for being here tonight. Thank you, Lieutenant. Oh my God, you clapped. You know what, that Chris Cotter and Frank Masiosi and Jordan Gladdiger say I couldn't control the crowd. All right, so let's, thank you though, that was very nice. You know, I think we all agree, while often making decisions in the throes of adversity and criticism, any individual seeking or holding a political position needs to have a strong fortitude and resolve. The hours of commitment are long and often thankless. The pay, well, I think it costs you more money than you make, you know. So to those that serve, and those that seek to serve this very special community, we salute you. And with that, now please join me in applause as we welcome the City of Summit's candidates for Council 2024. Let's meet them individually without applause. Ward 1, Democrat Michelle Kalmanson. Ward 1, Republican Don Nelson. Ward 2, Democrat Claire Toth. Ward 3, Republican Mark Gunderson. They will be debating and answering questions for about the next 75 minutes. We will begin with opening statements, and again, we randomly determine the starting order, and Ms. Kalmanson, Your opening statement.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to start off by saying this is all new to me. I am not a politician. I am not used to speaking to a large group of people. I am more used to speaking to my 2 kids who only half pay attention to me. I want to share with you a little bit about who I am and why I decided to run for council. My husband Miles and I moved here 6 years ago. We loved the small town feel, good schools, and great downtown. And like many of you, I got involved in the community. I've served as vice president of the Washington Elementary PTO and as a member of the Wilson PTO, served on the Washington Elementary Green Team, served as a chair of the Santa Claus Shop, and I am now the co-president of the Washington Elementary School PTO. Like many of you, I didn't spend my time going to or even watching council meetings. But then I was surprised to learn that the new council was pushing ahead with stadium lights at Tatlock at a cost of $1.6 million. I also learned my neighbors had no idea this was happening, so I helped organize Republicans, Independents, and Democrats to go to council and speak up. And fortunately, the lights were removed from this year's capital budget, though they very much remain a possibility for next year. Now, you may not agree with me about the lights, but I hope that you appreciate a person who is willing to bring people together, who will ask tough questions, and who will make sure that we prioritize how we spend hard-earned taxpayer money. This new majority has failed to engage the public or listen to what the public wants, whether it is on Broad Street, where they voted on next steps without public outreach they had promised, or on Maple Street, where they have ignored the public's desire for outdoor dining. We need people who will listen, bring people together, and stand up when necessary. So while running for office is definitely out of my comfort zone, I have stepped up to do this, and I hope you will support me.
Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. I'm Don Nelson, and I'm running for council representing Ward 1. I want to thank you, the audience, for being here tonight. I want to thank John Ceruto for hosting. I want to thank Hometown TV for their expertise. So who is Don Nelson? I was born here in Summit, raised here in Summit. My parents met in Summit in the late 1950s, and they lived here for the rest of their lives. Growing up, my parents worked at the Beacon Hill Tavern. I had a few jobs there growing up, dishwasher, busboy, whatever they made me do. I attended the Summit schools, graduated Summit High in 1979, met the love of my life back there somewhere in high school. We're married, we have 5 grown kids, and I'm very proud of my kids. They've all have great lives going on. But more importantly, I have a great granddaughter who gives me great hugs and kisses. So I had a few jobs after high school, worked as a production manager for a steel company, had a short stint as a stockbroker. But what I'm really proud of is my 41-year membership with the Summit Fire Department. I started with the Summit Fire Department in 1980 as a volunteer firefighter. I got hired as a career guy in 1986. I retired in 2021 as deputy chief in charge of operations for the department, as well as the emergency operations coordinator. I was asked earlier this year, as I was enjoying retirement, to run for council. So here I am. See my answer. So why am I running? The Broad Street West project really scared me. It was going to change the character of Summit forever. So what are my goals for Summit? Maintain and improve public safety. If you don't feel safe in Summit, we have to change that. Maintain our AAA bond rating. Responsible development. It has to meet the master plan goals, has to fit into the character of Summit, and it has to help us with our affordable housing goals. Maintain a strong school system. I believe in accountability. I believe the citizens of Summit, along with us, can make the best choices to solve our problems and challenges, and we need common sense. Get back to basics. I'm Don Nelson.
Ms. Toth from Ward 2.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, John. And thanks to all of you for watching, whether here or at home. It's a privilege to run for council. Let's engage in a thought experiment. Imagine you're designing the ideal council member. What qualities would you want in that person? You might want someone with deep roots in the community, whose children attended our public schools. Perhaps that person should have experience around the schools, the PTA, the Summit Educational Foundation, or the like. Let's build on that. The ideal council member should also have experience with local businesses and related organizations, such as Summit Downtown Inc. You might want someone with a strong financial and budget skill set, capable of working with both nonprofit and for-profit organizations. How about a person who has had years of experience on city boards, like the Zoning Board and the Historical Preservation Commission? A person with hands-on experience drafting laws and regulations. Someone with exposure to city planning principles and involvement in Summit's last master plan. You also might want someone who's worked with different segments of the community, serving on multiple nonprofits, such as Sage Elder Care, Family Promise, and more. Someone with a proven track record of bringing together different groups and viewpoints, listening and collaborating, and working across the aisle. This person exists, and by now you know that I've just described myself. In more than 20 years of dedicated volunteer service to Summit, I've developed the skills needed to be an effective council member. Over the next 90 or so minutes, I'll demonstrate why I am the best person for the job. Thank you.
Mr. Gunderson.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming out tonight, also those watching at home, and also to John Cerruto. Thank you so much for moderating this evening. A little bit about myself. I grew up down the road in Burnersville. I'm the son of a union carpenter and a private duty nurse. My father spent 40 years in the New Jersey Carpenters Union, and I learned from my parents the values of unconditional love and hard work. My dad would take the toughest jobs, toughest concrete jobs in the dead of winter to provide for our family. A lot of times other guys would decline those jobs. He would take them. And the hard work of my parents allowed me to get an incredible education at the public school system in Burnersville. I went to Williams College, got a bunch of scholarships there, and then I went on and got an MBA from Harvard Business School, actually, which is where I met my wife right there. So living in Summit, for me, was always an aspiration growing up. This is a special town. It's like the full package, and I feel incredibly blessed to be able to live here with my young family. I've knocked on the doors of over a couple of thousand residents so far in Ward 2. It's been an incredible informal survey of the town. And I'm finding that what's on people's minds actually really aligns with the 3 planks of my platform and my vision for Summit. Number 1, public safety. Job number 1 of council is to ensure the public safety and well-being of our residents. Second, fiscal responsibility. My entire career, my day job is in finance. I want to bring that skill set to bear to stretch our taxpayer dollars. And then third, opposing overdevelopment. I want to make sure everything built in this town is within the character and the look and the feel of this amazing city that we have. So I'm really looking forward to a robust conversation tonight. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out.
First question. The need for additional recreation and field time is a continuing issue. The Recreation Department has proposed stadium lights for Tatlock Field, extending the opportunities for the use of the facility. What is your position on this, and what is your proposal?
Being a neighbor of that neighborhood, I understand both sides of the coin because my opponent here is talking about how stadium lights could be a bad thing. I'm not convinced we need stadium lights, to be honest with you. I want to see all the studies come out. I know there's some things that are going on over in that neighborhood, and I feel like they're being picked on. I know Union County is taking back ownership of the field on Glenside Avenue, so that's going to affect us moving forward. I would like to see some other outside-the-box thinking. Have we explored everything that's out there that we could possibly use? I'm not sure, so that's something I want to look into. But I know moving forward, my opinion is that I'm not convinced we need the lights, but let's see where we end up after the studies are done and all that, you know, the feasibility study, the environmental study, the traffic study. Let's see how we do after all that comes back, and then we all can make an educated decision about that. I think it's important. I know sports is very important in Summit. I played football for a couple years. I played baseball. I did all that kind of stuff in school. I understand how important it is, but I also understand that we have to have the quality of life for the neighbors that are in the neighborhood. I'm not too far away. I enjoy hearing the sounds of for the football games and somebody scores a touchdown, you can hear the roar, you can hear the band. You know, the neighbors on Butler Parkway are a lot closer than I am, but as the bird flies, I'm about 250 feet, maybe 500, well, I should say that, 250 yards, but I'm pretty close. So I'm not convinced we absolutely need them, but I'm willing to wait and make an informed decision when the studies come back.
Ms. Toth.
Thank you. I want to pick up on the idea of the outside-the-box thinking, because we haven't been doing that. There are many options to pursue before spending $1.6 million on lights at Tatlock and several $1 million more that are in the proposed capital budget. We've just turfed the lower high school field. We haven't fully explored all of its potential. Think that there, as my running mate Michelle has pointed out, we do not have a central field scheduling system in this town. We haven't tried to work with the private schools in this town to do some sharing of athletic fields. I would bet that if we tried some of these alternatives or some combination of them, we could certainly avoid lights at Tatlock Field. Thank you.
Mr. Gunderson.
Thank you. Lights at Tatlock Field, I think my running mate Don touched on a number of important points. I want to mention a specific thing that in the last couple of elections I think has been loud and clear from the residents of Summit, which is transparency and engagement and listening. I know that there's been one councilman in particular has met with a number of, I think, probably 6 or 7 different times with small groups who live around Tatlock, who would be, who obviously have a very important and strong voice in this, soliciting that. It's still early days. There's still a lot of, the studies are being done. On the one hand, there's field shortage. The school-age population obviously continues to grow in Summit. But we need to be, mindful across the board of all our residents. So I would say, that's continuing today. And, I very much look forward to being part of that. No decisions have been made, but, this obviously is a hot topic and something that we need to make sure that we are very deliberate and extremely transparent about.
Ms. Kalmanson.
The proposal for stadium lighting at Tatlock is a solution to a problem that we don't fully understand. There has been no data to show us how often the fields are being used, who is using them, has anyone been turned away? And we need a 5 to 10 year growth projection to see what we're really dealing with. After all of that, we can really have a conversation about what needs to happen. In the meantime, some things we could do to free up field space would be, as Claire mentioned, we need a centralized field scheduling system. Right now, everybody has a reservation. Just because you have a reservation doesn't mean you can use it. That's why we see empty fields all the time. Another thing we could do is we can work with the private schools to secure field space. They're a part of the community too. This is a community problem and it needs a community solution.
Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal period? Then we will move on. Ms. Toth. The issue of safety. The Residents Protection Ordinance, which creates consequences on the municipal level for crimes such as car thefts and home invasions, was recently enacted to avert these kinds of activities. Do you support the ordinance? If so, why? If not, what alternatives would you suggest assuring the safety of our residents?
Give me an easy one next time. The Resident Protection Notice duplicates what exists in state law and really adds nothing. More recently, the state of New Jersey has done some things this year that I think will be far more effective than a municipal fine. This year, the state legislature reclassified many of the crimes around auto theft, burglary, trespassing as more severe felonies than they had been. So now the presumption is if you're convicted of one of these, you will get jail time rather than you will go on probation. If we believe that rational criminals weigh the cost-benefit analysis before committing a crime, I think that 5 to 10 years of hard time is a better deterrent than a municipal fine. I had a long conversation with the county prosecutor last week, and he very definitely prioritizes this sort of crime. He sees it across the entire county. He is a big fan of the automated license plate readers and speaks to how effective they are in catching these culprits. But certainly the county prosecutor's office is pursuing these and really should take the lead.
Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I strongly support the resident protection ordinance. I mentioned in my opening statement, I think job number one of government is to protect its citizens and make sure its citizens feel safe. Here's the deal. Over the last few years, crime was up over 100% prior to the most recent council coming in. The resident protection ordinance, for those that don't know, provides an additional tool to summit. So basically it says, hey, somebody steals a car, gets caught, if the county or the state let them go or just a slap on the wrist, well, guess what? They have a problem with summit. And the municipal prosecutor has an additional tool. So I always, I like to say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Since this has passed, several surrounding towns, a number of towns have literally been emulating this very law that we passed. Why are they doing that? Because it's working. Year to date, the first 6 months of council, attempted illegal entry into motor vehicles down 56%. First 6 months on the burglaries down 46%. I promise, I vow, I will, if I am elected, I will continue this progress. I will support the resident protection ordinance. It's not a silver bullet. We've also hired 2 new police officers. We'll support and make sure that our amazing PD has the resources we need. But I will drive this relentlessly day in, day out, because it is, by the way, the number one thing I hear knocking on hundreds, thousands of doors.
Ms. Kalmelson.
The resident protection ordinance was passed earlier this year, and many members of the community came out to say that they felt the language would unfairly target people of color. And council passed this ordinance. They promised to reach out to the community members who were concerned about the language. That has not happened. So there are members of the community who feel less safe with this ordinance. Now, I keep hearing that it's working, but we don't know that it's working. I mean, I'm not sure where the data is. We have not followed up. Is anybody following up with the prosecutor's office to see if these people are being prosecuted? We just keep hearing that it's working, but we haven't seen any data. So I would like to see some data to back up the claim that it's working. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. My running mate hit all the points. Crime's down. This is just another tool in the toolbox for the police officers. If we can't get county and state prosecutors to prosecute crime or criminals, we have a chance here in Summit to do that. Now, granted, it might be a ticket, it might be a Summit, whatever, but we get a second bite at the apple. And if they don't show up for court, there's a warrant issued for their arrest. And then as they're, I hate to sound generic, if they're doing another crime somewhere and they're stopped and they're run, that warrant's there. So it gives Summit the opportunity to do some good things. Now, think about a juvenile. A lot of these cars are being stolen by juveniles who's going to go to court, they get released to their parents' custody, nothing happens. If Summit has the ability to follow up on that, at least it's something that we can do to deter those kids from doing that again. We talk about data. Mark said it. Crime's down 56%. I shouldn't say crime, but auto thefts are down a lot. Maybe it's not because of this, but maybe it's because of a bunch of other things associated with this resident protection ordinance. It gives our police officers another tool. They have a hard enough job on the road doing the things that they have to do. This is another tool in their toolbox. And we always talk about people of color being the victims. 8 months. 8 months it's been in action. Well, we'll give it 7. Has anything happened? Has anybody of color accidentally been arrested?
Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal? Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, so just briefly, those statistics were from the council meeting, I want to say a month or two ago. Chief of Police read them out at the council meeting, so that's the source of the data. I would encourage anyone to go watch that council meeting. Secondly, we also have, I would say, we have a lot of trust in our police department to make sure that we are enforcing this, correctly. To say otherwise, I think is not true and doesn't reflect the character of the police department. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Mr. Gunderson, you'll answer this question first. The closure of Maple Street has multiple effects on commerce and downtown activity. Should this action be implemented? And if so, in what form and why?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I love outdoor dining. I think a lot of people in Summit do as well. And obviously we have some beautiful autumn weather coming up. We'll have some great weather, later next spring. Here's the thing about Maple Street. We have to balance on the one hand, the desire for outdoor dining, but on the other hand, safety and traffic flow. Everybody knows Maple Street is one of two, streets that goes north-south. It's a major artery along with 7th Avenue. So, in prior discussions, there's really been an all or nothing. It's like permanent closure half the year or nothing at all. What I would propose is an alternative, which is to say, we do not actually need Department of Transportation approval for a 48-hour closure. I think we should get going with this. We can, there are grants out there. There are other things to make sure that this is financially sustainable for the restaurants. Is it as ideal, obviously, for restaurants as a all-the-time closure? No, but I think it's a start. We can get going with it. And I think we should think aspirationally about it as well, which is to say, if it works really well there, we have tons of other amazing restaurants in Summit that are at various price points so that all our citizens can really enjoy the public benefit of this. So I think we should think creatively. We need to involve SDI, council, et cetera, to get something done here. And I think it could be really exciting. And there's, I think there's a real path ahead, and I would love to be involved in that.
Thank you. Ms. Kelmuson.
I fully support a seasonal closure for Maple Street. It's one of the top things that people want to ask me about when I'm canvassing. They say, why isn't Maple Street closed? I miss it. I loved being out there. Another reason is the downtown has not had as many visitors. And this is store owners telling me that their business is not doing well. And the business is down significantly over the past couple years. So one of the things we can really do to bring people in from other towns, we want to make them come to our town, come enjoy our restaurants, come enjoy our businesses. And one way to do that is to have it closed seasonally. And I think it will be a great thing for our restaurants, our businesses, and the residents. And I'm not okay with our town dying. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
Maple Street closure. I'm going to sound pretty bad here. It's the past. Let's move forward. Our own city engineer said he can't sign the paperwork. He's the expert. We rely on our experts to give us the answers. Only thing is it can't be signed because it's a major artery. Those of you that live on the north side of town, when you want to go to the middle school, where do you go? Summit Avenue. Well, what happens with Summit Avenue? So outdoor dining is great. My wife and I enjoyed it. Our own engineer said he can't sign off on the paperwork. We get compared to Millburn. I read the paperwork for Millburn. They did a study. They met all the boxes on the application. Summit's engineer said we couldn't do that. From a different perspective, I'm not debating our experts in town, but all we need is one incident where our apparatus, EMS, fire, police can't get to where they have to go. Is that going to be a problem? If you're having a heart attack on the other side of town and our apparatus gets tied up in traffic, is that something we have to worry about? So I think there are other options out there. I wholeheartedly agree with my running mate. Why not share it with other restaurants around town? Do a 48-hour. Try it out. Millburn's doing 48-hour closures from 4 o'clock on Friday to, believe it's 4 o'clock on Sundays. I may have my times off, but I see they're trying to do that. Let's emulate them. If it works for them, it'll work for us. La Pasteria. Let's give them an opportunity. Give the other restaurants an opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Toth.
It's no secret I support a seasonal closure of Maple Street and making it a pedestrian mall, as is easily accomplished under state law. I also know that a seasonal closure of Maple Street is about more than 4 restaurants. It's about bringing the community together. It's about music and dancing in the streets. It's about children playing and drawing on the street with chalk. There are exercise classes happening. It brings the entire city together. In 2 separate surveys, 70% of respondents said that they supported a seasonal closure of Maple Street. When I was treasurer of SDI, we did enter into a program that allows merchants in downtown to track business electronically using cell phone data, and that hard data shows that business is way down. A lot of that we can attribute to people going to other communities where they get to dine outside. The 4 restaurants on Maple Street don't have the sidewalk space for that, unlike other restaurants in town. It's a wonderful opportunity. There truly is much less traffic on Maple Street than you might imagine. You stand at the corner of Maple and Springfield for an hour, and then stand at the corner of Springfield and Beechwood, you'll see the difference. I've been behind this from day one, and I continue to be.
Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal period? If not, we will move on. Ms. Kalmanson. Homelessness, especially in the downtown area around the train station and bus stop, continues. What would your plan be to obtain more housing vouchers to help alleviate this issue?
Last year, Council joined the Continuum of Care, which helped reduce the population of homeless. And this year, there is a task force for unhoused people. We just heard back from them last night that they are working on getting, I think there are 17 people that they are working to get homed, hopefully by November 15th, which is very encouraging. It is still, I mean, it's a difficult problem to solve. And, if you elect me, I will do my homework. I will do my best to find the solutions to help, to help the unhoused population. And, that's, nobody wants to be homeless, and it's a quality of life issue for the people who are living on the streets, and it's a quality of life issue for the people in town.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. If we had experts in homeless, there'd be no homeless in Summit. It's a very tough situation. The mayor's task force on homelessness is making great strides. What's really key with the task force is it's getting all the players on the same page. We have multiple non-governmental organizations in Summit that are trying to help the homeless. There's a plethora of names. But the mayor is trying to get them all together so we're all on the same page. There's certain things you have to do. You have to get them into, I forget the exact name of it right now, but you have to have a plan for them to move forward. You can't just say, here's a sandwich, here's a shower, have a great day. You have to have a plan. And I think the mayor's the mayor's task force will do that. I truly believe that the Union County needs to be a big resource for us. They have to get involved. I understand the mayor's task force is trying to work toward that goal. Get somebody from the county involved with us. Summit does not have the resources. We have great people who donate a lot of money and time to that, but we need to have a plan to help those that are unhoused get work, get help, whether it be drug addiction or alcoholism, get our veterans housed. We have a VA hospital not too far from here in Lyons. Let's get them involved. There's another resource. But the county has the people. Summit has a very small group of people that can actually do this. So we need to have this task force. I understand you've had like 15 minutes so far, meetings so far. Let's keep it going. Let's get the county involved.
Thank you. Ms. Toth.
Yeah, the key player, I believe, in all of this is the caseworker who really does sit at the nexus of the various organizations. When Summit joined the continuum of care with the county last year, that gave us 1.5 caseworkers. So hopefully, I do hope that the mayor's task force on homelessness builds on this. I like the idea of bringing as many players together as possible so that we do have the range of resources. And I'm glad that we're building on the work that began last year. The beginning of 2023, the estimated homeless population in Summit was 50. At the beginning of this year, it was in the low 20s, and it sounds as though it has crept down a bit since then. We know that the next person we help is harder to help than the last person we helped, so we've just got to keep chipping away at this. And as Mr. Nelson suggested, if there were a silver bullet, we wouldn't have homelessness. So using the resources as wisely as we can is the key here.
Thank you. Mr. Gunderson.
Thank you. Hear me?
Mike, yep.
Ah, okay, we'll share. Thank you. Yeah. So this is obviously a complex issue. It's been stated by everybody, but I think, the mayor's task force, we spent some time recently with the chairperson of that task force, who also is, volunteers with EMT, First Aid Squad. And I actually commend what Ms. Toth said, which is, case manager, case management. It is extremely important to have a comprehensive care plan as we think about solutions here. It's very thorny, but if at all possible, we should be giving. There's a shelter in Elizabeth, and it's one of 4 things that the case manager is working on with each individual. Right, they either are going for mental health services, substance abuse services, working a job, or looking for a job. And I think really driving through with that lens, partnering is very critical. And obviously we need to balance compassion with also public safety. I support more quality of life summonses that have happened this year. I think that's a positive. And I will also just repeat what others have said, which is the county. This is extremely important. We can't let them, we need to make sure they are engaged and we have the resources. But this is an extremely important issue in our town.
Thank you. Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal on this topic? Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, so when I spoke about the use of resources, if you listened to last night's council meeting, the First Aid Squad responded to 280 calls for help for our unhoused population. That's a large number of calls for the First Aid Squad. That means they're busy helping someone who's unhoused, who needs help, but may not be able to help somebody else in town. So if that's the number of call volume for the First Aid Squad, what is it for the police? What is it for fire? So when I talk about not having the resources in town, that's a classic example of Summit not having the proper resources.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And you will answer the next question. Let's go to rapid fire. Let's lighten this up a little bit and get some real quick answers, And all right, if elected, what would your highest priority be that you would like to approach?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I spent 40 years of my life in public safety. And one of the things that really shocked me door knocking around Summit is I encountered a gentleman that I knew. He owned a restaurant in town. He owned a building in town. Told me he was moving because he felt unsafe. Now, I might be naive. Lived in my town this whole life. I never had that problem. I don't know whether I've been lucky or I just turn a blind eye to it. But public safety, if you don't feel safe in your town, you're going to move. And people are going to ask, why did you move? And you're going to go, I didn't feel safe here. And that creates a problem. Real estate values, school system, all that. If you don't feel safe in Summit, we have to address it. I spent my life, almost my whole life, on the fire side, not police side, but public safety needs to be #1 priority.
Thank you. Ms. Toth.
I spent my career as a tax lawyer and finance professional, so I'm going with the budget. The budget says who we are. It's what's important to us. Where do we spend our money? And yes, safety is probably the number one priority. Safety includes traffic safety, sidewalks, traffic calming. It includes stormwater management and climate resiliency. We need a budget that addresses these first and foremost and doesn't necessarily pour money into the wants, such as building a football stadium.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I said it. Might be user error. There we go. Yeah, I would say, look, it again, for me, it is continuing the progress in the reducing of crime in town. And there's a lot of other things. I've spent my entire career in finance, working with small businesses and capital structures and looking at operating budgets and capital budgets, et cetera. I really, really want to dig into that. I think that is additive, to overall for the benefit of our town. But without public safety and people feeling like that, I've had conversations, my running mate mentioned, I've had a number of those myself as well. So I would simply say that we need to continue the progress, not rest on our laurels, drive the advantage, and leave this in a better place than we found it on that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. Ms. Kalmelson.
My highest priority would be to restore civility. The lack of civility in town is dysfunctional. We live in a beautiful town. We don't need to follow the national divisiveness, and we're all neighbors. We all show up for each other in times of need, and I think we all need to come back together somehow. I would like to be a part of it. The town does not want to watch everyone fighting. The town wants to watch Democrats and Republicans roll up their sleeves and get to work for the town. So that would be my highest priority.
Another rapid question. The park line. What will you do to expedite the completion of the Summit Park Line project, which is the first new park in Summit in almost 90 years? And I believe, is it Ms. Toth?
When New York City was doing the High Line, I was a skeptic. I didn't get the point. Now it's my favorite thing in Manhattan. So I want the Park Line to be one of my favorite things. I do know there are neighbors with concerns. People on Henry Street and Eggers Court could potentially have people walking past their second floor windows. People on some of those side streets that are access points are already parked bumper to bumper all day long, and there's no room for additional cars. So the first thing we need to do is engage the neighbors. They're the experts on how it's going to work for them. And council has indicated it's going to begin that process, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect example of a public benefit, connecting a part of town in a very, from a walkability standpoint to downtown and other parts of town. But in knocking on doors on Henry as well as Ashwood Court, there's real concerns that residents have. People peering in, maybe nefarious behavior that could, happen sort of out of sight, et cetera. I think there are mitigants to that. We need to be listening to residents to make sure, that we are mindful and creative about solving some of those things. But when you go to Pearl Street and Ridgedale Ave, you go to different places that are within a couple of streets away, there is a desire for this. And so I think that's the job of council to balance all of that.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. Ms. Kalmanson.
I think that there needs to be more community engagement about this. It was on the agenda last night, and a lot of people, it ended up being moved from the agenda, but a lot of people showed up and they said, I haven't heard anything about this. I don't understand. This is phase 3 and we don't know what's going on. So I understand what it's like to find out about a project that has moved forward in your front yard or backyard and not known about it. So I would advocate for more engagement with the neighbors and ask them what they think, because the neighbors, they know their neighborhood best.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Well, if I told you I played on those train tracks when I was little and we walked that way, would that say how old I am? But I really did. I played on those train tracks. We would walk all the way down to, at the time it was Celgene, but, or Celanese, I should say. And I'll be honest with you, when they first talked about it, I thought it was a crazy idea. Like who would think of that? But I went to the Butterfly Garden opening, beautiful. I've walked it, both as a firefighter and as a citizen of Summit. It's a great idea. It does connect the neighborhoods. I do understand the neighborhood's problems. Believe me, I get it. Let's get them involved. Let's have more neighborhood meetings. I know we're going to meeting ourselves to death, but let's get them involved. We have to build consensus and show them the plan so they know what's going on. So I believe in that.
Thank you. Let's go back to the 90-second answers and the rebuttals if they so choose. A zoning overlay was adopted for the downtown Broad Street West. What is your vision for the area, Mr. Gunderson?
Sure. I'm going to take 10 seconds just to add one other thing from the prior question, which is simply that I met an incredible individual, professor of economics on Ashwood, and we hatched this idea, which is simply to say, let's set up a small committee with a number of members in surrounding streets around one or two or three issues. For example, like the park.
Mr. Gunderson, there is no rebuttal on that, so I think you want to
My apologies.
answer your question.
So the overlay zone, I think it's an excellent step in the right direction. It does one of three things. We need to do all three things, right? Number one, in terms of the old firehouse, we need to get a good price for it. Number two, we need an annuity. It needs to be a taxable property, an annuity of cash flow for our town. And number three, importantly, it needs to be part of pursuing our affordable housing goals. There is, 15 to 20%, depending on rent or own, of affordable housing units there. And two other important things, there needs to be parking. I was not a fan of Broad Street West. I didn't think that it wasn't a parked a solution, and also green space. I think that's incorporated in it. It will go out. And I think, council did a nice job of doing that. And I will simply say, this is not happening so fast. The last 2 years, it's an understatement to say that the community has given input on this. And, we need to listen and we need to move forward on that basis.
Thank you. Ms. Kalmanson.
The Broad Street West, last year in this room, when there was a debate, all of the candidates said that they wanted to hear from the community. What would you like to see? This is your property. We want to know what the community wants here. We want to have engagement. Well, that didn't happen. They created their own overlay zone. They passed it during the last week of school. Nobody was paying attention. People are shocked when they find out that council went ahead and created their own overlay zone to determine what will be there. So I feel like it's is it too late to have a discussion about this? When you say that the community was involved, there was only a certain portion of the community that was involved. Those were the people who came out against Broad Street West. You haven't heard from any other segment of the community. So a big portion of the community feels like they were not heard about this.
Anybody would like to rebut?
No, we have 2 more.
We do have 2 more? Hey, Mr. Nelson, I apologize.
That's okay. I was like, phew, I'm off the ticket there. Oh, okay. So the overlay zone at the what I call the firehouse lot, I think it's a step in the right direction. There was a whole thing with Broad Street West. We don't need to go down that road. It's history. But what this overlay zone does is it helps the city of Summit. We sell the property for whatever we can get on the market. It brings in revenue, tax rateables. It preserves some green space. It helps St. Teresa's maintain its parking. That's key to St. Teresa's. We don't interfere with them. And it helps us hit some goals for our affordable housing requirements or goals. Okay, I think those are all winners. I don't think, I disagree a little bit with my opponent here. There were 2,800 people that fought Broad Street West. That's like a large percentage of our population. So there was a lot of things going on. Wasn't done at the last minute. There was some planning done for it. I think it's a win-win. It's going to give us the ability to get some money for the property, revenue from tax ratables, affordable housing, green space, and it helps out St. Teresa's. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Ms. Toth.
So over the course of 3 weeks during graduation season, Council proposed and enacted an overlay zone with almost no public input. That overlay zone allows for more density of construction than would otherwise be permitted. So it in fact conflicts directly with all of those orange signs around town that said, make it comply. The overlay zone does not comply with current, as drafted, allows a developer to go way beyond what existing zoning law otherwise would. And I simply don't think people realize this. What we're essentially going to get is 30 to 40 luxury apartments up to 4 stories tall, when zoning would otherwise permit only a 3-story building. And out of that, we'll get somewhere 6 to 8 units of affordable housing, perhaps, that don't begin to meet our unmet goal of 25 additional units by the end of June next year. So it does a bunch of things that don't fit together and doesn't really solve a problem for us.
Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal? If not, Ms. Kelmanson, you'll answer the first question here. The next question first. Summit's downtown is the envy of many communities, yet there are always improvements and modifications that are needed. What ideas would you implement to enhance the future health of the downtown area?
Well, I think the pedestrian plaza on Maple Street would significantly improve the downtown health. Like I said earlier, it will bring people in, people will come, they will spend time in our town, and they will not go to other towns. So that would be my, that would be my priority, to improve downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson. 90-second answer if you so choose.
Okay. So I have a couple of ideas. I kind of grew up in the center of town. If you guys know where Lois Schneider Realty is, that's where my father was the super. I grew up upstairs. He had a house on Hillside, but I grew up in the center of town. Summit's always been a great place to go. Downtown Summit's always been great. It's changed, went from apartments to offices, back to apartments, offices. But where we are now, there's a lot of things in town that need to be addressed. The plant wells, they need to be cleaned out and dressed up. There used to be a gentleman who would wake up early in the morning. It was his job. He would go downtown, check things out, maybe blow the sidewalk here, do whatever had to be done. He's no longer with the city, and we never replaced him. So we need to have more people doing that. Also, I think we need to get back to the basics. If you have sidewalk dining, you have to maintain a 3-foot walkway. That's the requirement. That's the rule. Maybe clean your sidewalks once a month or once a week, once every 2 weeks in front of certain restaurants, because the sidewalks kind of... But here's a simple question that I've been asking people as I walk around, and it's kind of funny. Where do you buy underwear in Summit? You can't. So maybe we need to think about getting those kind of stores back in Summit instead of nail salons, beauty parlors. I know we're going toward the design phase in Summit because real estate values are so high. But if you have a senior citizen who can't buy a pair of underwear, they got to jump on a bus, go to the ShopRite. Hopefully they have the right thing at ShopRite. Maybe they missed the bus. Let's have something downtown that'll solve that problem.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Ms. Toth.
I've said for 20 years I want housewares downtown. But mostly I'd like to see housing. As commuting patterns have changed, as people aren't in offices anymore, or nearly so much, I think we have the opportunity to take some of our downtown office space and convert it to housing. More people living downtown means more energy, more vibe, and oh yes, a pedestrian mall downtown, that would be cool too. But I really want energy and I want buzz, and the way to get it is people who are there 24/7. Oh, do I have to keep talking? Mark can go.
Mr. Gunderson.
All right. Look, I mean, I think it's no secret that like I said, I grew up down the road. The Summit downtown is just, it's a gem. I mean, it's a great asset that we have. We have other business districts as well. So one idea is, Summit downtown, part of the beauty is the strength of the businesses themselves. I'm extremely passionate about business growth and, our business is flourishing and doing well. I'm a member of the Summit Economic Development Advisory Committee. This is what we think about all the time. Not just for downtown, by the way, but for other commercial districts. One idea, there are some incredible grants, other incentives, et cetera, that are available to our downtown businesses and other businesses that no one even knows about. There's the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. I was just at a conference and talking with some folks from there. We're going to actually bring them up to Summit, and they're going to give a tutorial. You can hold me to it. And they will speak to the business owners about a number of these. I wish I had time to go through some of these resources that are available. That's a real boost to them. I would also, I would mention we hosted about, I want to say 50 plus business owners at the Elks a couple of months ago. Someone gave pitching lessons to raise money to pay for the drinks. It was an incredible time. We gave every business owner a note card. Write down your criticism, your feedback. We're taking that, we're digesting it. There's a lot that can be done.
Would any of the candidates like to have a rebuttal at this period? Okay, let's go back to a quick hitting question. Rapid. Mr. Nelson, at council meetings, when do you feel the proper time for public comments would be and why?
Do you have another question? No.
Did the Yankees win?
I like Where's My Favorite Restaurant better. It's tough. Council's job is to listen to people, but council's job is also to run the business of the city. So if they spend an hour listening to the citizens, that's really important. But if city business doesn't get done, then certain things may not get done that the citizens are there complaining about. So it's kind of a catch-22. Maybe alternate it. 1 month it's early in the day, in this meeting. Next month is at the end. Then you pick and choose when you want to go. But council's job is to run the business of the city, and they have to get that business done. So that's important. But I also know it's extremely important to hear from the citizens. So
thank you.
Let's rotate the times.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Ms. Toth.
Okay. When I am council president, I am going to hold quarterly open house town hall meetings with a half an hour of the various members of council taking turns talking about what's going on in their committees, what they're working on, so folks know what's coming down the road. And the rest of it is questions and comments from the citizens. That will give plenty of opportunity for public feedback. And then in the business meeting, the continued twice-a-month business meetings of council, we can do the city business first, not keep our employees up all night when they have to be back at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, Ms. Toth. Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I like my running mate's creativity with that idea. I think that's a really interesting idea. There's obviously a balance, and look, at the end of the day, everybody in this room, right, the residents of Summit, I mean, this is what this is all about. So there's also the aspect of running the town and making sure that I think some good points were made by both individuals here. The other thing I would simply say is it's obviously not just at council meetings. There are committees, as I against the rules, I guess, had said, to set up at different neighborhoods and different issues like that. And I could say just knocking on doors, which has just been thrilling. There's so much feedback that comes in,
5 seconds.
and not just the council, et cetera. So I think I like these ideas.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. Ms. Kalmanson.
Council has a job to do at the meetings, and when public comment is at the beginning, it can completely derail their business. I think it's good to have at the end. I feel terrible for the city employees who have to sit through some of the very long public comments that are very lively, and they shouldn't have to sit through some of this really, really long and unfortunate conversations, I think. So I think it's good to have at the end.
Thank you. Another short answer, please. Ms. Toth, being on council involves collaboration with council colleagues. Why do you believe you can work with others, especially those from the other party?
I'm in a mixed marriage, and I prove every day that I can work across the aisle. I've also been on the boards of more nonprofits and city boards than you can shake a stick at, and I have built boards. I've certainly reached out to people with the skill sets that we need regardless of party affiliation. I've been able to work with people from all different viewpoints and political affiliations. As long as we all have the same ultimate goal, which is the good of Summit, we can get it done.
Thank you. Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I think it starts with kindness. Everyone has a view. These views are very strong. But the way I like to operate is to seek to understand where the other side's coming from. If we're ultimately saying what's good for Summit, what's good for our community. I can tell you again, just when I'm knocking on doors, this is a shocker, but almost nobody even gets into partisan issues and national. It's really about like what are the actual issues, and I think keeping it a little bit unemotional, keeping it on the basis of the actions and the facts and what we can do makes a huge difference. And I think that the work will continue on council, and I'm excited about the collaboration that would happen.
Thank you. Ms. Kalmanson.
Well, I've been working with Republicans and independents all year. I put together a coalition of Republicans and independents, and we were all working together towards our common goal of getting more information about the lights at Tatlock and getting council to listen to us. When you have something that's really important to you, you put everything else to the side. And I think the entire town would love to see more of that. Republicans, Democrats, independents working together and putting national politics to the side.
Mr. Nelson.
At the end of the day, we all live here for the same reason. Summit's a great place. It doesn't matter what party you are. I guess my father borrowed this from somebody else, so I'm going to steal it anyway. It doesn't take a Republican or a Democrat to fill a pothole. At the end of the day, you need something done, you call City Hall, you call whatever committee it is, we need to get this done. If I lived in another town and I watched some of our council meetings, I would just change the channel and go, what the heck's going on over there? That's got to stop. So when it comes to party affiliation, local is where it starts, local's where it ends. Doesn't matter whether you're whatever, blue, red, I don't even know. We're all here for the same reason. We want the same goals for Summit. We want the same goals for our families.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Let's go back to another 90-second answer and a rebuttal. Stormwater management complaints are numerous about this issue. What would you suggest to the city on how to go about addressing stormwater management?
Yeah, stormwater management needs to be a real priority. Obviously, there's been in Ward 2 throughout the town, flooding has become a real issue. We need to look at this comprehensively and make sure that we are working with the engineering or other firm to be able to map out where are our priorities, where do we need to shore it up. Obviously, there are federal, there's state, there's other money as well. Council has been working in this direction. I know at recent meetings we've discussed this. I think making progress there, but this is absolutely a crucial thing, and I'd say it's one of the top it's one of the top priorities that I hear out speaking with people as well. And one of the things that we need to make sure that we do is as we look and we identify it, we have to understand that there have been a number of really bad storms that have come. And I was speaking with someone who, she was talking about sort of, the history of the sewer system, et cetera. This is an area that, we need to I know the work has been done, but continue more of a comprehensive plan and a prioritization to be proactive with it.
Thank you. Ms. Kalmelson.
As a council member, it is my job to listen to the community and not to be the subject matter expert on everything. We have a very talented city engineer, and we need to let him do his job, and we can help set the priorities. We can tell him, that this needs to be prioritized, and I have full confidence in him that he will, if we want to prioritize that he will guide us in the right direction.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I know the city's done a storm drain and sewer drain evaluation in the last few years. The guys were in front of my house a couple weeks ago with the cameras snaking at, looking down the sewer lines. So I know there's been some progress in it. But one thing that struck me funny is a couple days ago I was talking to someone. The storm sewers, for the most part in Summit, were designed for a storm that happened every 25 years, a major storm that happened every 25 years. They're old. They're really old. Now we're talking about on the news, the storm, this is a 100-year storm, this is a 500-year storm, this is a 1,000-year storm. What does that mean to the average person? It means a heck of a lot of water. And we need to look at our storm sewers and really also go back to, I'm on the zoning board. We need to start holding people accountable so when they do projects, that the water, nothing beats Mother Nature. She's the best. When we start adding all these tanks and everything in, is it really going to work right? I'm not an expert in stormwater. When I built my house, they told me the water can't run off my property into the street. So what do? I graded it so it stays on my property. Now I have some pumps that manage my water, and it pumps it into the street anyway. So we have to have experts that really know what's going on, and we have to manage the water. When projects are done, we have to make sure they don't contribute to the stormwater problem. And I know Springfield Avenue, real quick, is having a problem with their houses behind the properties eroding away. How many storm drains are drained into that river or stream that was never designed for? So those are all things we have to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Ms. Toth.
Oh, thank you. So it was a month ago tonight that we got 5 inches of water in 2 hours, and that was the storm of the century. Except on July 4th, last year, we got the storm of the century. We're going to have the storm of the century next year, too. Summit has a citywide playground plan. It has a citywide sidewalk plan. It does not have a citywide storm water management plan. So that's job one. Right now, as Mr. Nelson suggested, stormwater management is handled resident by resident as they improve their property, and that imposes obscene costs on folks. I spoke to someone recently who wanted to repave his driveway and had to spend $26,000 on stormwater management in order to do so. We need to look at it citywide. We need to, as Mr. Gunderson suggested, look at funding outside the city, and to the extent that city has costs to manage it citywide, it should be it's a burden we should all share rather than socking individual residents with giant bills as they try to add a family room or a deck. But we've got the talent to do it. I was lucky enough late last year to walk part of Salt Brook with the city engineer. It's something they do every couple of years. He showed me the erosion before it happened. So we know this is happening. We got to deal with it.
Any rebuttal? All right, so we're going to go down to our last question before we have closing statements. I just have to make a comment. I was here last year for the debate. So well run, great participants, but you guys got off easy. This is flying. Everyone has to answer so many darn questions. We run out of questions. So the last question, which is pretty simple, all right? What do you think the main qualities are that draw people to live and work in Summit like this proud Milburn Township resident?
Well, that's easy because it's the qualities that brought my family here. We came here to look for a place back on the East Coast, and we fell in love with Summit. It was exactly the town that I would have loved to have grown up in when I was younger. the town that I grew up in is a nice town, but they're constantly redistricting the schools. So you'll go to school, you'll have friends, and then they redistrict and your friends are at a different school. So I was looking for somewhere that my kids could grow up and they would be with the same friends until they graduated high school. When we came to look, it was just a charming and beautiful town, beautiful downtown. It's been everything that we wanted. My kids have made lifelong friends, and we love it. And I know that's why. I know that's what draws other people to Summit.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
So, growing up here, I thought every town was like this. A little naive. I apologize, but no, really, Summit is a great town. As Michelle said, you move here, you grow up here, you meet people, they stay here a long time, you become great friends. The school systems are great, easy access to New York. It's not a Summit. City of Summit entity, but Overlook Hospital is a world-renowned hospital. So there's a lot of things that this area has. Half an hour to New York, airport's 20 minutes away, skiing. So Summit has a lot of good things going for it. Great clubs, great people, school system's fantastic, great downtown, and growing up here was a great experience for me. And I hope that your family and your kids can have that moving forward. And that's what my goal is, to have that for you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Ms. Toth?
I mean, generically, it's always been the downtown, the schools, and the commute. We moved here before we had children, and for us, it was the downtown. And now that our children are grown, I love that my adult children are still best friends with the kids they went to kindergarten with. That wasn't something I had growing up, and I envy them, but it's the place I want to spend the rest of my life. And it's why I've given the city as much as I have over the years. I love it, and I want to do everything I can to make it better.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I use the term the full package. And Mayor Fagan last year called Summit the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And I think it is the combination of what everyone has said here. But you have New York City right there, but you're on the edge of the country. We love walking with our golden retriever at Jockey Hollow. You can get out. It's the variety of the topography, and then also I will just say the people as well. When we moved here, we had a family come over to us and brought wine and a gift, welcomed us. Other people just organically poured out, and we had over 20 people on our front yard having a spontaneous block party. It's just a special place. I love this place, and we can keep it great together.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. I have to tell you, all of you have performed so well here tonight, answering many, many questions. Nobody had any idea what the questions were going to be. And, this great city should be very, very proud of their candidates. And with that, why don't we just give them a round of applause before they do their summit. At this time, we're going to start with Mr. Gunderson. He will give his closing remarks.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much to John Cerruto for moderating an excellent discussion. Also want to thank you, my fellow candidates, for a very important debate on the issues that are, top of mind for Hilltoppers. And also just want to thank this room. Like I said, everyone who came out really cares about this, cares about our town, listened patiently. And I just want to say, you hearing these different viewpoints, at the end of the day, it's all about you, the residents of Summit. And to me, that's what's been such an incredible experience, meeting so many residents in town as I've been door knocking. I say this, I've been saying this constantly, it sounds sort of cheesy, but honestly, I'm having the time of my life knocking on doors, meeting people. The people I'm meeting, I might not otherwise have met. It's just absolutely incredible. And just hearing what what's on people's minds, I really can't get enough of it. So I just want to share, just so that people know how kind literally everyone or nearly everyone has been at the door. And there's tons and tons of data points. Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. It's been amazing, and it's about local issues. It's about what matters to Summit. And I will just say, when I'm out door knocking, I'd say most times, at least one person or even multiple people invite me and whoever's knocking with me inside their home for tea, for water, to get out of the rain, whatever. It's been an awesome experience. So I will just say, if I have the honor of being elected here to serve on council, I will work so hard to ensure a bright future for Summit. It really is a city on a hill. We're a city on a hill. And I'll bring my experience as a father of a young family, my expertise in finance, my work on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. I'll be laser focused on continuing the progress that we've been making as a town on reducing crime. I will look to stretch our taxpayer dollars, fund non-taxpayer funded revenue to bring into the municipality, and ensure responsible development. So that's my promise to you. Thanks again for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. Ms. Toth.
I'm going to close by addressing the elephant in the room. I'm a proud Democrat. It's been a great honor to drive around Summit and see my and Michelle's yard signs next to signs for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And I can't help but wonder if our opponents are as happy and excited to be sharing a ticket with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Summit holds council elections every year. Our opponents chose this year on a Republican ticket headed by Donald Trump.
Excuse me, Ms. Toth, this has
Yes.
to remain local. If you remember the rules, we stay local.
Summit is a bipartisan community with control of council switching back and forth between Democrats and Republicans. Now the Republicans are in control with 5 of the 7 deciding votes, and the 2 seats up for election this year are the only ones the Democrats hold. This fact makes this election a critical one. To maintain Summit's bipartisan spirit and to ensure that all voices and viewpoints are heard, we need Democrats on Common Council. Michelle and I have shown you tonight why we are the stronger candidates and the people who will bring valuable diversity to the conversation and the decision-making process. Voting for us keeps those important voices on council. Thank you for your time and attention. Your vote is your voice. Please use it.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Wow, what a great experience this was. I was really nervous when I walked into this room. Again, I want to thank you all for being here and listening to us. Thanks to our fellow candidates for being here. And again, thanks to John, Hometown TV, and especially the timekeeper guy, because he's doing a great job. So you heard my opinions about topics tonight. Hopefully my answers were clear enough for you to understand. But I want to go back to my opening statement real quick, because I left something out. When I was asked to run for council, I had no idea what party I was. I voted for Dave Baumgart's. I'm a Republican. I voted for a couple other Democrats. I didn't care. I voted for who I thought was the best person. And that's what I'm asking you to do tonight. Vote for the best person. I believe Summit's a very special place. We all know that. That's why we're here. I want to maintain and improve the reasons why you moved here, why you still live here, why you shop here, or why you visit here. My goal is to make Summit good for everyone. If you think I can do that, then I would be honored to do that job by being on council. Summit's very lucky to have an engaged citizenship. It's amazing how involved everyone is. People like you, people like those debating here tonight are great for the future of Summit. Summit will have a great future if everybody keeps being involved. My running mate and I together, along with the Together for Summit team, are not afraid to tackle the tough issues. Once we learn everything, we're going to make decisions. We're not afraid of stormwater management. We're not afraid of the lights. We're not afraid of crime. We're not afraid of public safety. We want to tackle those issues. Remember, we all want the same thing. We want a safe place to raise our family. We want to feel safe in our homes, and we want a bright future for our kids. My goal is to make Summit that place to accomplish that. Will we always get it right? Probably not. Not in everybody's eyes anyway. But I truly believe if you don't make mistakes, you're not trying. From a kid who played on the streets of Summit to a man who protected the streets of Summit on fire trucks, I want to thank you for caring about Summit. And, for your politeness when I knocked on your doors. I look forward to working with you and for you after November and with you after November 5th. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Ms. Kalmuson.
As I said earlier, I'm not a politician. I'm a person who cares about my community. We can do better than constant bickering. We need council members who can bring people together, as I have done. I believe that council needs to do better with our tax dollars. This council has passed the largest tax increase in 10 years. I believe that council needs to do a better job with being transparent and listening to the whole of Summit and not just their friends. But it's not simply that I will bring back fiscal responsibility and increase transparency. As the mother of 2 young kids, I will advocate for sidewalks and pedestrian safety. I will also advocate for better playgrounds and for making sure that Summit is safe and that the police share information with the public. We also need better communication on road closures and repairs. It's unacceptable that it sometimes takes half an hour to go 1 mile in a town of 6 square miles. We also need to rebuild a sense of community. Like many residents in Summit, I am relatively new. And maybe because I am relatively new, I am not stuck in past arguments and instead can focus on the future. It is a future that we can build together. So regardless of party affiliation, I am asking for your vote so we can work together to get things done.
Thank you. And that concludes the 2024 Summit Candidates Forum. Thank you for your civility, your decorum, and your engagement. And as somebody had mentioned, this is the GOAT. Good luck moving forward.